All right. So, as the title says, I want to talk about how to get ready for your job search. And what I'd like to be able to do is to basically discuss how you can manage your job search and focus in on the types of jobs, the types of industries that you might be looking at. Also, I want to share some tips on how to be really well prepared and knowledgeable about the various job search strategies. I'm sure you've heard of networking and applying directly, but we'll talk a little bit about how you can implement different strategies. And then the other thing that I really think is important is to figure out your job titles before you even begin to search, because unless you are a teacher, say an accountant, there's a lot of different job titles that apply to different majors. So I think that that's one step that you have to take. And then even things that you can do before you contact potential employers so that you're more prepared. Um, so one thing I really encourage job seekers to do is to make sure they get organized. You Once you start an official job search, it is like a full-time job. So you want to set your daily, weekly, and monthly goals. So it helps you stay focused, and uh, it helps then you manage your time more effectively. Uh, the other thing you have to do is just keep track of all of the records you're going to accumulate over time. You might have two different resume versions. You're definitely going to have customized cover letters. You might be working on your LinkedIn profile. So there's lots of different things that you'll be doing. And when you start sending cover letters out to your potential employers, you need some type of system. So, some people might use a spreadsheet to just keep track of everything. Some people will probably use Google Docs, but come up with a system that works well for you. The other thing, this can sometimes be challenging when we are working at home and other people would be sharing our apartments or homes and our space, but do the best that you can to find a spot in your place where you can really focus on your search. It also means that you want to try to avoid a place where there's a lot of distractions. Sometimes people with pets or young children, or if a landline or a cell phone is going off in the background, that can be very distracting. And when you do begin interviewing, it's likely that some of these interviews will be virtual. So you need to really be thinking about how you're going to set that up, where you'll set up your laptop, phone, whatever you'll be using. All right. Now, this is another very important first step, which is determining your target. So obviously, you want to look at geographically where you're going to look. And I often tell people what you should do is wherever your home base is, you might want to just spiral out from that location. So you might say, okay, I'm going to look for potential employers that are maybe 25 miles from my home base. And then if that's too far, to travel, you might say, okay, I'm going to make it 20 miles or 15 miles, but start to figure out where you will focus. And then once you know the towns in the area, in that region, you want to find out, well, what's happening in those areas? Where are some of the needs? Where are some of the major employers? So I would definitely encourage you to do that. And then the next thing is, I mentioned job titles in the previous slides, but what you need to do, I think going to Handshake is probably one of the first steps that you can do, because for a variety of reasons. Handshake, you know that the employers posting their jobs on Handshake are probably looking for FSU grads or are FSU students for internships. So many of them are going to be local, and maybe they've had interns there before, or we have FSU alums there. So it's important to look and just find out what job titles they are using. So for someone with, say, a psychology degree, there are lots of different job titles. That it might be counselor, it might be social worker, it could be a lot of different things. So what you might want to do in addition to Handshake, I also think you should go to ONET. Um, and ONET, if you just put in counselor or social worker or let's see, there's just so many different types of counselors, so you might expand upon that. And then find out what pops up. And with ONET, it'll actually give you other job titles similar to the job title you put into that search bar. So that's a good resource. And then BLS.gov is another wonderful resource because with that, you can again, you can look at different job titles. You can find out what kind of training is expected, a little bit about the job description, and by reading those, it'll just educate you about what employers might be looking for. So when you do apply, you'll be better informed. Um, so the other thing that I always think you need to do, you have to have like backup plans in different types of job titles or different types of jobs. I often say that you could have three different tiers of jobs. Your number one level would be the job you would absolutely love to have. It's like in your mind at this point, at this stage, as you prepare for graduation, you're aiming for something. But you should have the next tier, which is what I could do, what I can do. Maybe since you've completed an internship and you're doing similar work and you could do something exactly like that, that would be a job that you can do. And then the third tier, which would be kind of a backup, which would be if I really have to, you know, if I can't get my first choice or my second choice, what's going to be that backup plan? And just prioritize in your own mind. Um, Now, I think that every job seeker should customize your search. And there are very specific job search sites sometimes for different types of majors. Our teachers have SchoolSpring. There are very, specialized sites. So if you can find out what the employer directories that might exist online. For instance, I know there was a directory in terms of human services and maybe a directory of professional associations affiliated with your major. And you know who's going to be able to help you with this? Our research librarians. There are some amazing online directories, and you can actually reach out to our research librarians and have any kind of how-to question, and they love it. They would love to be able to help. If you say, I'm a psychology major, I'm a nutrition major, I'm a business major, they will be able to help you through that process. So you'll notice here, if you just go to the Framingham State website, and I would put in the search bar LibGuides, LIBGUIDES, you'll find a guide, and you'll find a librarian who specializes in your major. All right, so I would definitely do that. And then the other thing that I noticed when I was doing a little research, there's another tool called Career Transitions, and you can get that through through LibGuides and the Whittemore Library site. And what you do there, you put in a job search title, and then you put down, remember I mentioned 25 miles, 15 miles, 10 miles, and then you put the geographic area you're looking for, and it will pull up all the jobs that match what you put in there. So I definitely would take advantage of the resources through the library. You should be using LinkedIn to search for jobs. And I don't know if you do have a LinkedIn profile, but we certainly can help you build that. And you can follow different organizations on LinkedIn, but you can use it to search for jobs. And I'm happy to answer questions, if you have any along the way. The other thing that I would do regarding LinkedIn, I would join any groups that apply to you. So if you are preparing to graduate, you are a brand new alum, right? So there is a LinkedIn page for Framingham State University alums. And then if you attended a community college prior to FSU, if it applies, you can even join a LinkedIn group for that community college. Um, there are some LinkedIn groups for professional associations and professional groups, but I did mention here that sometimes you have to be in the field already and experienced before you are accepted into the group. But you can certainly watch for different types of LinkedIn groups. And it's the advantage of being a group member on LinkedIn, you have more privileges to get in touch with those group members if you're not directly connected with them through the basic connections. All right, so the other thing that you really want to make sure, obviously, you have to make sure your resume represents you the best way possible. Um, if you have not had someone from our office critique your resume, I would encourage you to set up a time and we can give you feedback. And I usually will say to anybody that I'm meeting with when it comes to their resume, I want to understand what types of jobs they're focusing on. Have they selected any type of employers, or do they have some job postings they want me to take a look at so that I can get a sense of how you're going to customize that cover letter? And there might be things that we need to add to your resume. So let's say you don't have a section on skills and we haven't added your computer skills, or if you speak another language, even if it's basic conversational French, Spanish, whatever, we include things like that. And for some majors, social media skills are important. Our marketing majors, business majors, communication majors. So there are lots of other things we can add. And then I just want to make sure that you know how to write a powerful cover letter and know how to set the format up, and also know how to set up your thank you notes, because those are all tools that you're going to need once you begin your job search. The other thing you might want to consider doing is creating some business cards. I know that we are not having networking groups face to face and things have changed a little bit, but you might be in a situation, even with family, friends, and if you have a business card, when you're in a more of a social and informal setting, you're not going to have your resume with you, but if you have a business card, you could share that business card with family, friends, neighbors, high school friends. I mean, you just never know. And just make sure that you're connected with people with, in terms of LinkedIn. The other thing that you should do is you really have to think about practicing your infomercial, or basically your elevator pitch, how you're going to introduce yourself at the beginning of an interview if they ask, tell me about yourself. And the more you practice, the more comfortable you'll be. So if you are even networking and chatting with friends, you're just more comfortable talking about what you're looking for, and maybe the coursework you've completed, what the name of your degree is, what your experience has been at your internship. It just will sound more natural as you practice. You have to think about who you will be using in terms of your references. And you're going to want to create a list of references. Not that you're going to automatically give that to everybody every time you go in for an interview. However, if they ask, let's say you've done a nice job introducing yourself at that first interview, and they'll say, Joanne, do you have references? So what I would do is I would just pull out that reference sheet and I would hand it to them. And then it makes it easy for them because they are going to want to talk with people. The people you might use as a reference, obviously a supervisor from an internship, a supervisor from part-time jobs, professors who know you well. Maybe you've been in a research method class, and they know exactly what you've been working on and your dedication to your projects. So if you aim for 3 references, if you can maybe have 2 professors and your internship supervisor, or maybe you've worked closely with someone else at your internship that you want to use even as a coworker, that's acceptable too. But you have to have some supervisors in there too. All right. So how can we help? How can a career counselor help you as you prepare for your job search? as I mentioned before, you definitely want to have your resume critiqued. We just want to make sure it's going to represent you well. And we can take a look at cover letters too. So we can see if you are addressing them properly. And what I mean by that, we try not to use to whom it may concern or sir, madam. If you do the best you can and you can't find a name, then I would much rather you say, dear hiring manager. And then if you do want to attend presentations like this, we have presentations on all different topics: LinkedIn, how to use an employment agency, working on networking skills. The list goes on. And you can find out more about that on our either our website, or if you follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook. So the other thing we can help for those students who are looking for internships, we can talk to you about how you would find an internship. We can also, if you want to go through a mock interview, we've been able to do that through even virtually, certainly. We can either do it just by phone, or we could do something like this in terms of a Zoom meeting, which is probably more effective because we can see a little bit about your we could see if you're using your hands a lot, if you're distracted, you don't have eye contact. There's lots of things that we could probably give you feedback on. And if you can practice typical interview questions, we'd rather that you practice with us so that you can think things through and work out some of those details, so that when you are asked some of those questions in a real interview, you just feel more prepared. The other thing that we're really good at is, if you bring in a job posting, you tell us what you're looking for. We can almost dissect that ad with you and try to figure out what skills match up so nicely. And we can give you some examples of how you might talk about those specific marketable skills, either in a letter or when you have to describe your strengths, say, during an interview. So definitely, I mentioned the elevator pitch and infomercial. You just keep practicing that. That's really important. And then the LinkedIn profile. I want to make sure that everybody does have a LinkedIn profile and they know how to use LinkedIn effectively. And I will be, actually next week, I will be doing a presentation similar to this on LinkedIn and how college students can build an impressive LinkedIn profile. So it's a great tool, and I want to make sure people are using it effectively. And then we can help you out in terms of researching jobs on Handshake and LinkedIn. And maybe if you speak with a librarian, you'll find another site. A lot of students use Indeed, but I know there are very specialized sites, depending on people's majors. So we want you to be aware of those. When we talk about everything online, you need to make sure before you start your active job search that you are making a good impression on the internet. Obviously, what I would like to happen when somebody Googles your name, the best thing would be for your LinkedIn profile to be the first thing they see, because where LinkedIn is a social media site for professionals to keep in touch, that's what you want them to notice. If you do have a Facebook account or your own blog, you really need to go through those very carefully. And with Facebook, I know you can set up a privacy setting. I would do that immediately. Just make sure you don't have anything controversial in terms of Facebook or on a blog, because people will access this. I was reading somewhere along the way that employers and recruiters tend to, like, probably 72% of the time when somebody applies for a job, they will look at the applicant's social media sites before, in some cases, before even bringing them in. And I think in some fields like teaching, counseling, where you're going to be working with either children or vulnerable populations, they want to make sure that you're a safe person to put in front of their clients and their students. So just be aware that you need a good presence. certainly, on online. Now, let's talk about the different techniques that you could use when you start your job search. As I begin here, networking is the best way to find a job. If you think about how you have found jobs in the past, many times people get their internships because they know someone who knows someone, a family friend, a neighbor. Networking is the best way. And it's usually when you go in through networking, in many cases, the interview might not be as intense because they already know you. Somebody has referred you. And if they have a good relationship with your contact, they're going to feel more confident in you. Um, so I mentioned earlier, don't ignore Handshake. We continue to get job postings, and there are local and national employers that are looking for our students. So that's a great resource. And I don't know if you've ever attended a virtual career fair. They're obviously very popular right now, and they're similar, certainly, to a career fair in terms of having employers there for students to speak with. But I would watch for the virtual career fairs. And the other thing that we have continued to do, we have the virtual Framingham State University employer showcases. So again, if you go to our site and you just watch for events, we do have employers that come in. Many of them have been on Wednesdays like we used to do on campus. And I don't know if you remember that, but we would have employers come in Wednesdays either from 9 to 12 or 12 to 3 or 3 to 6, and they would be there to speak with our students. So it's set up a little differently in terms of virtually. Uh, the other thing that I don't think people always do, I would start to target certain agencies, certain organizations that you already know probably match your skills, and then with the help maybe from a librarian or looking at Handshake and looking for the kinds of organizations that are looking for someone with your major, then what you could do is you could customize that cover letter. And you could actually reach out to them even before they post a job. And that could make a really good impression because they're going to feel as though you selected them. You know, you're not taking the passive role of just waiting for the job to come, job posting to pop up, and then you have a lot more competition. So you're probably not going to do this with every single cover letter you send out, but there might be certain agencies and organizations that you would love to work for, and you could do your research and then contact them. The other thing that you should do is if you do have a contact at an agency or organization, make sure you are connected with them on LinkedIn. If they have a LinkedIn profile, in some fields, they might not have a LinkedIn profile, but do the best that you can, to connect with people that you already know. And then make sure that if let's say you set up your LinkedIn profile 2 years ago and you haven't been in touch with people recently, make sure you announce to your contacts that you are job searching and maybe explain what you're looking for, because some agencies have employee referral programs, and I don't know how this is being set up now in terms of just where we are with COVID-19, but that was very common, and your contact might get $100 or $500 if they bring you in to the organization. So there's an incentive, for the employer and the employee. And then the other thing that I would consider is using recruiters or using employment agencies, because in some fields, you can get a temporary assignment or cover someone while they're on leave. And by doing that, you might be expanding your contacts. So maybe that's going to be your second tier or your third tier option, but it's always something to consider. And then I guess the other thing is just kind of think outside the box. I mentioned earlier that sometimes job searching is taking the passive route, which is just waiting for the job posting and say, okay, today I'm going to send out 20 letters because I found 20 different opportunities, or 5 or 10 or whatever it is. But you're still going to do that. You're going to look at certain job sites. But again, if you can do some research and you can follow companies on LinkedIn or agencies and maybe find out where we have Framingham State alums, that's another way to expand your connections. Um, and then just with LinkedIn, since it is such a great tool, you actually can set up what we call a job alert. And LinkedIn is amazing. It's just so intuitive. So it will, if you say that you're looking for a certain type of job, and we put in those, the keywords, what will happen is, let's say today, the 5th of May, you say, okay, I'm looking for, a such and such type of job in the greater Boston area. As soon as you put that in, from now until, unless you change something along the way, LinkedIn will just continue to be looking for jobs that match up with what you're looking for. And then you'll just get an email or contact through LinkedIn. Oh, we found five jobs that you might be interested in. So while you're working on your networking and doing other things, LinkedIn is working for you too. Uh, and then the other thing I'd consider, even if you're getting ready to graduate, if you can find a paid internship, if you can't find something full-time, consider a summer internship uh, that would be paid, or as I mentioned earlier, a temporary assignment, because that's how you're going to expand your network and you're going to gain relevant experience and maybe have something else that you can add to your resume in addition to your previous internship. Um, if there are any professional associations that you might be able to join, even while you're still a student, or at least research what associations are out there, uh, that would be something to consider too, because sometimes professional associations might have an electronic newsletter and they'll keep you up to date with what's going on in your field, and that you'll just be more knowledgeable. And I think that that's what every job seeker wants to be able to do, just to continue to learn about what's going on in their field, and be well informed. Okay, so what I've included here, and I can share this PowerPoint with you. I can follow up with an email. Um, these are just additional resources that I would encourage you to take a look at. Many of them, I guess all of them really, are from my favorite author, Allison Doyle, from the Balance Careers. And she always, whenever I'm doing a presentation, she always seems to have the most specific articles on exactly what I'm trying to share, the topics with the students. So she talks about the top strategies for a successful job search. She even talks about how to organize your search and how to target employers. So I encourage you to definitely take a look at these. And then I just want to make sure, if you do have any questions, if I can answer any questions for you, I'm more than happy to do that.
So a couple questions. I do have an account with Handshake. I think I set it up last year. I haven't really been on it though, so I might want to go back and double check on that. But also for LinkedIn, I have an account. You said you were doing a LinkedIn presentation.
Yes,
Um,
next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday. Is it going to be through Career Services?
Yes,
Okay.
it'll be actually the same time too.
Okay.
1:30 to 2, if that works well for you.
Yeah. Because I do have a LinkedIn. I don't know if I set it up correctly, and I don't know what like kind of information to put on it,
Yeah.
since I set it up, I think 2 years ago, but now I'm going to be having a bachelor in psychology. I know that I want to obviously update it with the
Absolutely.
experience that I've had through college. I just would like more information on how to do that. So next Tuesday at
Absolutely.
1:30.
Yeah, because there's so many so many places that you can add keywords and even courses you've completed. If you've done a research project, we might even include that. If you have a poster presentation, so there's visuals that you can attach to LinkedIn. It's just an amazing tool, and it's wise for you to be focusing on that and getting that in good shape.
And
Definitely.
also another question for Handshake. Can students who have graduated from Framingham State, can they still keep that account on
Yes.
Handshake?
Yes.
Still have that. Okay.
Yes, you still will have access to that. Um, and that's a good question in terms of for alums, you still have access to our office in general too.
Right.
So, you can set up appointments, you can go to our website, you can attend virtual career fairs.
So we can still do that even though we're not a student?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yep. Framingham State University is very committed to their alums.
Okay, perfect.
You're part of the family.
Yay. And then for references, you said 3 at most, or is that just like the minimum kind of?
I'd say the minimum would
Okay.
be 3. So if
And
you
you
can,
said 2 supervisors, right?
yeah, I mean, realistically, some people haven't had as many internships, so they might just have one supervisor that supervise their work at an internship. Um, Typically, many students will have an internship supervisor and maybe 2 professors. But I had mentioned too, if you've made connections at your internship, even if it is a coworker, at least you have to have one supervisor. Absolutely. Somebody who has supervised your work and can provide feedback. But employers also are concerned about how do you work as part of a team? How do you treat your coworkers? What do your coworkers think about you?
Mm,
So I think if you made a really good connection at your internship with a counterpart or someone else who didn't officially supervise you, you could consider that that person also.
okay.
Definitely.
Okay. And I think that is it for my questions.
Well, I appreciate you participating and um, all those good questions. And as I mentioned, I will share this information with you, and we hope to have it uh, on our website soon.